No judgment, just real talk. This is the Apology Accepted podcast. The views expressed on the Apology Accepted podcast are those of the host and guest and do not reflect the views of any affiliate organization or individual. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. For personal, legal, or emotional matters, please consult a qualified professional. By continuing to listen to this podcast, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Hey friends, welcome back to the Apology Accepted podcast. I am your host, Latisha Monique, and this week I would like to talk about overcoming self-doubt. Ooh, we all been there before, right? Yep, okay. I'm just going to raise my hand twice because I can only speak for myself. I want to share with you guys the definition that Google gives, and it states, lack of confidence in oneself and one's abilities. Wow. Yep, that used to be me. And you know what? I shouldn't even say used to. Sometimes it is still me. Yeah, I admit I have all those things. Self-doubt and imposter syndrome are struggles many of us face. These feelings tell us we aren't enough, that we don't belong, even when we have earned our place. It still give us this little voice that say, are you sure? For me, self-doubt often show up as second guessing my abilities. It's that voice asking, what if I'm not ready? Or what if they realize I'm not as good as they think I am? See, it's me trying to ask the question and be in someone else's thought to answer the question all in my own self. That self-doubt that will talk us out of anything. I'm going to use this podcast for example. I started this podcast November of, not last year, year before last. So this was 23. November 23. And I was on a roll with it. And then it was like something came up in where I could not stay consistent. And then once I fell off, it was like, well, hey, I don't need to do it anyway. Ain't nobody listening to me. Who am I? I am not a PhD professional. Because most of the podcasts I listen to, everybody has their niche of their profession and what they're speaking on in their field. And I knew that is not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to share my experience, my stories, real life things. So as time went on, I ended up having a couple of friends say, hey, are you still doing the podcast? What happened? I haven't heard anything else. Is it a new episode coming out? And why did you stop? And you need to start back up. Those, I will say, I do have a small circle of folks around me who kind of notice when I'm slacking and will call me out on it. And so I took what they said in consideration because even prior to me starting this podcast, I sat on it for years. And that self-doubt sat right along with me, right by my side, every day. It sat right with me. So I've learned to remind myself that everyone starts somewhere. Because for me, it was like, okay, first of all, you are not tech savvy. That's first. Second of all, again, who wants to hear you? and what you have to say. And everybody got a story. Like, everybody have a story. What make your story the story that folk won't listen to? What I said is that what folks want to listen to. And what I realized is a lot of my examples, someone will be able to relate to something I'm saying. If not everything, at least one thing, a half a thing, something. I don't know. That's my hope. When I feel that doubt creeping in, I ask myself, all right, Tisha, what evidence do you have that tells you you are not capable of doing the thing you want to do? Who said you should not be here? And when I cannot produce anything because no one said it, and I have no evidence that I should not be doing the thing that I want to do, so then I just sit in my thoughts. Because when it comes to this podcast, as the example I gave in particular, with having self-doubt, it's like, okay, Tisha, you have facilitated women groups, you have facilitated teen groups, you have spoken and been a voice for women in reentry. You have shown up and spoke at jails and prisons for women. And now you having all of this self-doubt for a podcast? Girl, get yourself together. Get yourself together. Because see, sometimes I got to talk to myself like that. Get your ish together. And that's what I would encourage all of my listeners to do. If you are having self-doubt and you cannot provide the evidence that clearly states you are not good enough and or qualified enough to do what it is that you're trying to do, then guess what you should do? Go ahead and keep going and doing it. Absolutely. You should do exactly what you originally set out to do. Now, another example I have, because I do have evidence. So, starting this podcast, I didn't have no evidence that said, girl, you shouldn't do that. Go ahead and, try your hand at something else. I had no evidence. But in 2020, I started my healing journey for real. You guys heard me say that before if you caught any of the other episodes. And so I started back on ministry as far as church. I started attending church consistently, and not only attending church, but attending Bible study, trying to learn, trying to read my Bible, trying to understand and better educate myself when it comes down to the word. Now, when I asked myself about that evidence, that may be. Now, I had some evidence on that one. Because, girl, what? First of all, prior to 2020, I was that example of church hurt. So I put the big red X over church. That was not going to be a thing for me. And I actually said it out loud that I would never attend church again. I would never be under a Christian leadership again. I said that. And then boom, 2020 comes and here I am back at church. And so And it felt good to be back. And what prompted me back was that, of course, COVID has started, and, social media was a huge thing. Well, still is, but social media brung most businesses to the virtual world. And I started watching church and Bible study via Facebook. And I started following a pastor, which I've seen and heard about prior to. But I started following him, and the difference is he wasn't like all of the other pastors in which I was used to. I was used to you wear, your pastor, when they get up in front of you, they got on their 9-piece suit, hat with a feather, and they is ready. They got the big Bible. Now, I've only seen certain pastors with these Bibles, and I don't even know where they get it from, because it is not in any local Christian stores. I've looked for this Bible. It's the real big one, not the regular size one. But anyway, so that's what I was used to. And then I come across my pastor, who, if I ever speak on him again, I normally call him PD, which stands for Pastor Dad. But that's the relationship I've formed with him. So he was like a degular person. He made me feel like he was he he made me feel like a uncle at a barbecue that always got a joke. That's how I felt. Like because he was just so authentic. It was just so down to earth. Even though he preached a word, it was a word I could relate to. So, getting into church, joined church, and now I want to be a part of things in the church. And so I sat with that for months because, again, here go this evidence. Girl, what you finna think you finna be a part of, girl? The only Bible verse you know is John 3:16. And that's a true statement. The only Bible verse I could repeat with no hesitation was John 3:16 at the time. So it's like, you finna think you going over here hollering about you want to be a part of who ministry? Because what do you know? So for months, I said nothing. I just attended my Sundays, attended my Wednesdays, and kind of just really tried to push it out of my mind. But I really, really, really wanted to be a part of, I really wanted to feel like I was serving in a manner in which I wanted to be a part of. I didn't want to just be the member that attend and that's it. So, not knowing but one Bible verse, I reached out to the First Lady, which that was weird for me because I've never had the opportunity to ever have access to a First Lady on no level. So, not only did I reach out, she responded. Uh-oh. And so that was, for me, weird and interesting all at the same time. But I went on and I was like, I want to be a part of, the women's ministry. I just wanted to do something. I really didn't know what. I just wanted to be a part of. And I remember saying, I only know one Bible verse. So, if being a part of this ministry is going to require me to know a whole lot, I'm gonna go ahead and gracefully, excuse myself. But she was like, oh, no, okay, sure. Awkward moment of silence for me, because I'm like, what? Did you hear me? I said, I only know one Bible verse. I wonder to this day if she really heard what I said. Nevertheless, I ain't going to remind her. But I had the evidence for me. Because remember, I said in that self-doubt, then I said, okay, well, what evidence do you have to make you not capable of proceeding? And for me, that was the evidence. The evidence was you do not know enough as far as the word or Christianity to be able to sit amongst other individuals who have been in this maybe for years, since birth, or, your parents or your grandma, nanny, them, big mama, whoever had you in the church since you was a kid. Like sitting amongst those type of individuals, and then it's me. Now, I used to go to church when I was little, but that, again, one Bible verse, okay? And that was it. That's all I had. So my evidence showed me that I probably wasn't qualified. However, I was accepted anyway. So the moral for that story is, even when you're not qualified, still shoot your shot, because you never know. You never know how it will turn out if you do not try. Some of us have experienced accomplishments, and we still have that unworthy type of feeling. Imposter syndrome is more than a feeling. It's a barrier to owning our accomplishments. I think back on the times when I downplayed a success or felt unworthy of recognition. And that goes back to me knowing that one Bible verse. So the downplay for me is, well, it's only one Bible verse. But the success of it is, I know it. So come on and say it with me. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Oh, okay, I'll take my bow. Clap for me, y'all. Y'all better be clapping for me. But yes, that one verse was my key to getting into the doors where I needed to get into when it came down to ministry and church. Because as long as I was able to say that, I was in. No, but seriously, self-doubt is one of those things, man. We can't control it. It is out of our control. The only thing we can control is overcoming it. And it's not going to be easy every time. It's definitely, going to have its challenges for everything that you try to overcome. Is, overcoming self-doubt is not a one and done. So even if you overcome it for one thing, that does not necessarily mean you won't feel that self-doubt in another area for something else. The only thing we can do is control how we overcome it. And that is by asking ourselves, where is the evidence? And is this evidence valid? And so that's why I wanted to give and share 2 examples, because 1, I had evidence, 1, I did not. Either way, in both cases, I proceeded. And that's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to proceed with whatever it is, because sometimes you're going to have that evidence. Most cases, you will not. But in both situations, proceed. Absolutely. Proceed. As we wrap up today's episode, remember this. Self-doubt is a normal part of being human, but it doesn't have to control your story. Every step you take towards believing in yourself is a step towards unlocking your full potential. Give yourself grace, celebrate your progress, and surround yourself with those who lift you higher. You are more capable than you realize, and your dreams are worth fighting for. Well, until next time, keep showing up for yourself and embracing the power within you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Apology Accepted podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked some growth for you. Be sure to subscribe and share with others who might need this reminder too. Until next time, you all, remember, healing starts with a simple apology. Take care.